right, there we go. Hey everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another great day of FileMaker training at fmtraining.tv. I'm the creator of fmtraining.tv, where you can learn all about the FileMaker platform and learn how to build better FileMaker applications for you, your customers, your organization. This broadcast is completely free to everyone and is being broadcast in high definition to Discord, YouTube, and to Twitch. This broadcast is being recorded, which is really great. Of course, we might clean up the recording a little bit, so if we make a malfunction during the live stream, then of course we reserve the right to clean that up on the recording later on. However, because it's a live broadcast, we encourage you to ask questions. In fact, some people get aggravated when there's this dialogue with you and we ask questions. We want questions. If you have a question, odds are other people have the question too. And so I want to thank everyone for logging in. Ken and TK and Dave One, Dave Learning, Ed, Elzo, Carol, Jake, Mike, all of you, welcome once again to another great broadcast. Now, as a reminder, if you want to check out the upcoming broadcast, go to fmtraining.tv. Press the left tab for the live button. You can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. That's pretty awesome. Additionally, if you want to help support this channel, right? We always say this. This broadcast is brought to you by fmtraining.tv, bringing you the greatest and the most entertaining FileMaker training videos available. So the idea is that if you want to help support the channel, make sure you check out our on-demand video bundles. We have videos that cover the latest version of FileMaker. We have videos that cover the deploy course. In fact, we used to sell the courses individually. Anymore, it's just much simpler to sell a complete bundle for a low price. We do this on an annual basis. So if you buy one of the bundles, that really helps support the channel. It ensures that we can keep coming back every day, because this broadcast actually takes a lot of money to run. The people here don't work for free. As much as I would love that to be the case, they do want to get paid. So moving along, today's broadcast is being supported by the folks at the Los Osos office. That would be Haley Marie, Christian Olson, and the awesome coaching team down there. They're originating the broadcast. And so let's go ahead and cut over to them right now and get our guest speaker going as well.
Well, I want to say thank you to Richard. I don't know that he's actually listening in on today's broadcast, but I also want to welcome all of our regular streamers and any new ones that could be here today. As Richard said, we're broadcasting from Los Osos, California, and not necessarily in Los Osos, but I could see the sky yesterday and today, so it's a great day. I don't think I've seen the sky in about a week. Today we've got Jonathan Ray joining us, and Jonathan's going to be doing a pretty cool demo. He's got 2 files for us, which I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun on this. Yes, we will be sharing it with you. We're going to need to get a hold of Richard so he can make sure we can get those bit.ly links out to you. And today's topic is really cool. So as many of you are aware, FileMaker 19 is really going to start to open the doors on the leveraging of a lot of the web tools that are out there through the use of JavaScript. But whenever we bring this topic up, a number of people kind of throw their hands in the air out of fear or fright of what that actually means. Other people get frustrated because they love the ease and use of FileMaker. And so what I really like that Jonathan's going to be able to bring to today's stream is to take some of that mystery and fright out of the use of using some of these new technologies and features, and show you that you don't have to be a web guru or a JavaScript expert to utilize these new technologies. And I think you guys are hopefully familiar with Jonathan. I believe he's been here before. He's actually the creator of our web portal wizard that we have out there. And Jonathan, you've been with RCC for what, 16 years now?
Yes, yeah. So back during the FileMaker 5.5 days, when there was no such thing as a web viewer in FileMaker and things were a lot simpler back then, we've had to evolve with the times here, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, so Jonathan is definitely one of the original people with RCC. So I'll tell you what, Jonathan, I've been talking quite enough. I'm going to put you on full screen. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to keep an eye on questions. I'll do my best to interrupt you at the right time with those. And everybody, please, as you're watching this, bring those questions into us. Jonathan will be very happy to answer it. But Jonathan, I'm going to turn the floor over to you now.
Okay, great. So to go back just a little bit with to what you said, Christian. With the release of FileMaker 19, we got a couple new neat things that we can do with the web viewer. Most of what I'm going to show today can be done with previous versions of FileMaker going back to, I don't know, something like FileMaker 14 or something like that, whenever the FMP URL protocol was introduced, and I'll explain what in the world that is a little bit later. So this is not an exclusively 19 thing that we're going to be discussing here today, but there are a couple 19 specific features, and along the way I'll point those out as we go. Okay, so when you hear the word JavaScript, if you're like me, no one likes learning new technology if they can avoid it, right? So I'm not going to go out and learn C++, because I don't know it right now, and I don't have any good reason to learn it, right? But if it gave me some sort of great advantage, and if it was easy to plug into FileMaker Pro, and I could reverse engineer it pretty quickly, yeah, then maybe I would. And JavaScript is one of those types of things where the initial cost of learning how to deconstruct some code is worth the payoff in the end. So with JavaScript and FileMaker, you don't actually have to be able to write JavaScript from scratch, thankfully, right? But you do need to know just enough to integrate JavaScript with a FileMaker web viewer. And we'll show you how exactly to do that today with some very basic demos. And then we'll go into our second demo here, this Google chart demo, and that'll be just a little bit more advanced, but you should be able to keep up with some of these things, and you can ask questions along the way. So let's jump in here. You see here that I am demoing what I'm calling a horizontal scrolling demo. All right, so if you've been around FileMaker for any number of years, you've come across the fact that a FileMaker portal can only scroll vertically, right? So if I go into layout mode here and I put a portal on the screen and I just draw a portal, okay, and say I, use the current table or something, okay, it goes up and down. You cannot go left to right or right to left for that matter. There is no setting that allows you to do that. And there's all sorts of cute little hat tricks out there that try to do this natively in FileMaker, and none of them are very good, okay? Particularly because you can't have lines. Each portal row line cannot shrink automatically or expand automatically depending on the number of characters you have in each field. I really wish FileMaker would put that in there, or Claris would put that in there, but I don't think it's going to be a feature that we're going to get anytime soon. Okay, so what I have here is a piece of JavaScript code that I'm going to deconstruct for you that allows us to scroll from left to right. What you're viewing here, these little newspaper clipping type things I just pulled off of Wikipedia here, each of these little cards is a FileMaker, represents a FileMaker record in the background. So if I go to pull up a new window and go to my child record table, you can see I have 6 records here, okay? All 6 records belong to this parent record, okay? And I'm scrolling left to right, and you can see that the little cards are shrinking and expanding based on the amount of text that's in one of them, all right? And if I click on one of the cards, then it pops up a FileMaker card style window, all right? So notice what's going on. Let me slow down real quick and explain what you just saw. I'm looking at a web viewer, right? If I go into layout mode, here's a web viewer. And in the web viewer, I'm clicking on something. And when I click on it, the web viewer is calling a FileMaker script in this file and doing something. In this case, it's pulling up a card style window and bringing me to the record that I clicked on, right? So conceptually, this is pretty straightforward. We're just looking at a list of records, not vertically, but horizontally. And then any one that I want to click on, it gives me this little hover animation. I click on it, it pulls up the record, and I can delete or close, basically. And that's it. Or I can modify this. So say, I put in test data here, okay, and I hit save and close. Now you see that it updated right away. Okay, so again, this is not something you can do natively in FileMaker. If you figured out how to do that, I would love to know, but I do not think it's possible. Do you, Christian?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
And Jonathan,
So
that window that comes up, though, that's just a regular FileMaker window that you're editing the records in, right?
Sure. So let me explain it this way. I'll pull up the script debugger and show it to you live here. So if I click on it, my web code that's in this web viewer told FileMaker to trigger this script, my script called go to record. Okay, it grabs, I'm passing it a parameter, the ID number basically of this record. It goes to a new card style window in FileMaker, right? This isn't a web viewer anymore. It enters find mode and it finds that child record and then shows it to me. As easy as that, okay? So I'm going to close this down and then deconstruct this, show you exactly how I did it, and then we'll advance on to another demo from there, okay? So first of all, if I go into layout mode, here's a web viewer, and maybe for those that have never played with a web viewer before, it's this little button up here, okay? You click on it and then you just drag a web viewer, right? You create yours. They have some pre-built ones that I don't think I've ever used these before. Maybe I have, but usually it's a custom web address that you're putting in here, okay? And you can tell it exactly how you want it set up. Okay, so for this one, the web address or the web content that I'm putting in here is coming from a FileMaker field itself. Okay, so that's what I'm referencing. And I'm saying I don't want to display status messages. I don't want to display progress bar. I just want it to show me the web viewer content. Similar to pulling up a web browser, I just want to see what's on that screen, okay? And automatically encode it. All right, in this case, I'm not doing any FileMaker 19 specific things in this file. If I were, I would need to check that box. And in the next demo, I do have that box checked. That's a FileMaker 19 specific feature. Allow JavaScript to perform FileMaker scripts, okay? So that's how you set up the web viewer. And then let's take a look with what that field is doing there. So I'm going to define database, and this is the field that I'm referencing here, okay? We double click on this. This is a calculation field. And if you notice here, it's pulling one field, the HTML field, and then it's doing some substitutes. So this isn't going to make much sense at all unless I show you another screen. But you can see, just know right now that what I'm displaying in that web viewer is coming from a calculated field, okay? And all of you will be able to get these files and reverse engineer them yourselves. There's no real secret sauce to them, no trade secrets, all right? So I'm going to go to Preferences. There's only 3 layouts in this whole file. Preferences, Child Records, and the Parent Record, okay? So in Preferences, here's how it's set up. If you're familiar with HTML at all, this looks pretty basic to you, okay? Let's, I'm gonna pull up a document editor. I just want to show this to you. This is basic HTML, okay? Come like this. That tells the document that this is indeed an HTML document, okay? And then you have stuff like things that you want to include in your header. So begin header, end header, begin body, end body. Okay, I'm just writing HTML right now. And in your header, you can tell it that the doc type is HTML and the language is English. We don't even need to include that here. Okay. And then in the body part, the main part, we have a div or a divider, and then the actual data, and we have a couple little pieces of JavaScript. Okay. That's as simple as you're going to get. But that's the basic structure of an HTML document. You have the begin HTML tag, end HTML tag. You have a header, stuff that goes inside the header, a body, stuff that goes inside the body, right? And then down below the body or inside here, you can have some JavaScript, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, let me hide this. So that's the HTML. These little placeholders here, where I have these 3 stars and it says CSS, 3 stars and it says jQuery, 3 stars and it says JS, all of that is going to be replaced by something inside FileMaker. FileMaker is going to replace these placeholders here. So in this case, if I come to Data Viewer, let's get rid of all this stuff. This is the final calculated HTML. Okay, so it looks a lot more beefy than what we just saw. Okay, all of this stuff was the CSS that was replaced, and all of this stuff is coming from it's FileMaker records. Each one of these little things. This is a FileMaker record. That's a FileMaker record, etc. And then I have some JavaScript that I'll show you in a second here. Okay. So
and Jonathan,
I'm going to
interject
go ahead.
there real quick. So your HTML calculation you have in the field is basically swapping those out with all the code that we just saw there in the data viewer.
Yes.
Very cool.
And what you could do, I'm just simplifying this, right? I could show you a huge text field that looks like what I just showed you there, the calculated result, but I'm sectioning it out basically.
It looks like you're making it more manageable, much easier to kind of see what's going on.
Exactly. It's just my preference on how to do that. So if I go to CSS here, what CSS, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's the styling of what we're looking at. Okay, so I know that the title is going to be big and bold, like, I don't know, that's 14 or 16 point, and then the body here is going to be 12 Times New Roman, and the little reference is going to be really tiny, and so forth. Okay, so and then right here, if I hover over the box, it's going to give me a little shadow look. So all of this is custom styling. All right. And you can either write that type of thing from scratch, or you can search online some elegant styling and put that stuff in there. Okay. Then comes the JavaScript. And the JavaScript is this. It's just a little piece of code that I copied somewhere online. And it allows me to scroll left and right. That's how I can go left and right. And I literally just Googled horizontal scrolling JavaScript. And I got this piece of code here, which allows me to do that. And then jQuery is something, I certainly didn't write this. It's one of the most popular JavaScript libraries out there. And I basically just copy pasted this. jQuery deals with records, and it's very common. So this whole thing I just copy pasted because this JavaScript requires it. Okay. And then for every single record here, here's what's displaying. If I go to define database in the child record, okay, for every single child record, if I double click on this, this is what it's doing. Okay, it has I think it'll look better if I demonstrate this way. I'm going to do a new window, and I'll go to a child record to show you. Okay, and here's the calculation. Okay, so the first part here with this divider, it says on click, meaning if I click on this part, this card style window here, okay, then do this FileMaker script. All right, and the parameter is the ID of the record. And then it gives me the first part, you know, the title here in bold. Then it gives me the main body, the text. And then it gives me the citation, and that's it. Okay? So what I'm doing here, in my parent record, I'm getting a list of all of these child records, that calculation field, and displaying them in the HTML. All right, that might be a mouthful, and I don't know how many people are follow along with me so far. So we might want to pause right there, Christian, and see if we have any questions so far.
We don't have any questions so far. Over on the Discord side, we do have a lot of people really kind of chiming in a bit, in that they're starting to mess around with some of this stuff themselves, and they just think it's really cool with what you can do in there. In a moment, I might have a question for you, but I would say for now, continue with what you got.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so if I pull up, let's see here. I'm going to pull up the child record.
And I lied, Jonathan. I'm going to actually throw one question out there. It's a basic one for HTML, but Scott Kane wanted to know, does the HTML care about the white space between the div and the chevrons when you're writing that?
The white space, I'm not quite following.
So if you go back to the HTML, I think he's wanting to know if the white space matters when you're writing the HTML. And Scott, by all means, jump in.
Okay. So right here, all these little things there, right? They don't have to be butted up to the left-hand side. Same with this. So you can use, this might be new to people. You don't have to put spaces. You don't have to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 space. On a Mac, you can do a tab, which is if you hold down Alt-Tab, it gives you a tab there and saves you on typing spaces. But yeah, you don't have to have everything butted up to the left-hand side. You can use spacing, and some white spaces makes it easier to read. Okay.
In fact, I would say highly recommend it. Makes it much easier to follow behind.
Sure.
And what Jonathan just said there, I didn't know for so long that you can hold Alt or Option to throw tabs into there in the calculation engine. Really useful.
Right. Let me go back in this child record thing and then show you how each of these records is constructed. All right. So I have list, which just means give me this one, and then this one, and then this one, this one, this one, this one. Instead of doing something like A and paragraph and B and paragraph and, instead of doing that, you can do something like list, semicolon, semicolon, and it gives you a list stacked on top of each other. That's how I'm doing that. Okay, so this is how I'm constructing everything. And again, this is the way I'm calling the FileMaker script. I'm saying get file name, which is the name of this file, horizontal scrolling demo, and script equals, I'm putting in the name of the script there, go to record, and then I'm saying the parameter is the ID of the child. Okay, and that's how that script works. So again, if I come back to this parent record, I hit script debugger, and then I click on this card, it fires that script, and in the script parameter, it passed us the ID of that child record. Okay, so new window, card style window, find, set, perform find. All right. So what we just looked at there, this whole demo doesn't really even use a JavaScript library. It uses jQuery, which I guess, yeah, it's a JavaScript library, but it's so common that I don't even really refer to it as a JavaScript library. It's its own thing. But this little piece of JavaScript, I mean, it's like 6 lines, okay? It allows us to do something that FileMaker can't do natively, okay? And there it is, that JavaScript, little placeholder there, right? So we just looked at a JavaScript technique that doesn't use a full-blown JavaScript library. It's just 5 lines of JavaScript. The next demo we're going to look at does use a JavaScript library, and I'll show you, explain what that is, why that's important, okay? So before we go on to demo number 2, any questions there, Christian?
Yeah, I've got one actually for you. For the JavaScript that you have written there, is that something that you just wrote yourself, or is that something that you found on the internet and applied to this?
Yeah, so I just Googled something like horizontal scrolling JavaScript, and one of the first thing that pops up is that little piece of code, and I copy pasted. It's not a copyrighted thing. It's freely available. Most code that I write with JavaScript is using someone else's and then tweaking it to meet my need there in FileMaker. I could not write JavaScript from scratch if I wanted to. I don't have that skill set, but I can deconstruct things that are already written. So it's like my knowledge of the German language. I can read some German, but if you ask me to actually speak in German fluently, there's just no way. But I can figure out, where the nouns are, where the verbs are, etc. I can plunk away if I need to. The same with JavaScript here.
Well, I think that's so cool, and like you pointed out, this one isn't even using the 19 tools here, but I think it's really important for people to hear that. I mean, even for myself who's getting new to this, it's nice hearing from you, Jonathan. When I was at the Claris Engage, Jeremy Brown from Geist Interactive said, I don't really know JavaScript. I go on the internet and I find the things that I need and I apply them as I need, and it's really cool to kind of see that we're all in some ways in a similar playing field there. So I don't have any questions for you at the moment, but I just want to say this is really cool. Actually, since I've been working with FileMaker, horizontal scrolling in portals is something that people have been asking me for over and over again, and this is what an easy implementation, really.
Right, and this might look strange because we're looking at some sort of like articles and citations and things, but you can imagine small little lines and scrolling left to right. You can style it however you want. Anything that's available to you on the web as far as styling goes, which is virtually limitless, you can put in a web viewer here.
And
okay.
I think last question, when you're hovering on those and they get that animation, is that the CSS or is that the JavaScript that does that?
Yeah, okay, so good question. Let me come over here to preferences, and then this CSS here, okay? Let's just say that I remove everything. I'm just gonna cut. Okay. Now you see how crazy this looks. It'll still kind of work. All right. But it does not look good at all. Okay. If I put that styling back in, then suddenly we get all the card style windows and the hover and everything else. So if I delete or cut the hover part out, you can see it doesn't give me an animation at all, but the script will still work.
That's really cool, Jonathan. And you know what? I got so busy asking my own questions. We do actually have one question from you from the community, and that's, will this work in a web viewer? I know this is a common thing that comes up with some of these technologies.
Will it work with WebDirect, you mean, right?
Thank you. Would it work with WebDirect?
Yes. Yes, it would. Now, some libraries I don't think would at all, and you would need to test it. But It's kind of a case-by-case basis. There may be a more technical answer from FileMaker, but in my experience, it is a case-by-case basis because you can do a lot of little hat tricks. I don't know.
Perfect.
So you gotta test that out.
Well, I'm not going to distract you anymore. I know you got another demo file with a lot to show us. So why don't you continue with this presentation?
Okay. Okay, let's pull this up here. Whoops, it's the same one. Okay. So in this demo, I'm using Google Charts as a demo, okay? But this isn't really about Google Charts, all right? And I'm actually going to open this in FileMaker 18. Okay, there we go. This isn't about how to use Google Charts. This is just an example on how to get a picture of something that's generated in a web viewer, okay? So the issue with web viewers, yes, you can do a lot of neat things. You can display and interact with web viewers in ways that you can't do natively in FileMaker. But one of the big issues is that you can't very well print web viewers easily. They don't shrink and expand well for you. You know, it's very difficult in that way. So if I tried to print here, let me see what this would look like here. Hopefully it doesn't freeze the whole thing. But anyways, if you have used web viewers in the past, that is a big limitation of them. They just don't work well with FileMaker. So I wanted to use Google Charts in a solution I was working on, okay, but I needed to generate a picture of the chart. So I wanted to stick a picture of Google Charts in, let me just force quit this. I wanted to get a picture of a Google chart and put it inside a FileMaker container field. And that's not available natively. You can't just do that. Hopefully this will work. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you can't just do that. So you could take a screenshot of it. You could use a plugin that tries to do that for you. Okay, but I figured out a way to get whatever is displayed in a web viewer inside a FileMaker container field. So this is a FileMaker container field here. Let me just drop into layout mode real quick. So we have a container field and a web viewer here, okay? And this is the same type of setup that we saw in the last file, where you have your HTML, the JavaScript that's gonna be replaced right here. And then in this case, there is no CSS at all. Okay, it's just HTML and JavaScript. And so what I want to do again is generate a Google chart, or really anything that you want to generate, and then stick the rendered image inside a container field. So here's how I did it. In JavaScript, this might look a little complicated right off the bat, but let's deconstruct this. I'm going to pull up Google Charts, okay? In a previous live stream I did, we looked at how to do Google Charts at least a little bit. This is the documentation on how to do all of their charts. You can see on the left-hand side all the charts they offer. This is a free service. And I literally just copy-pasted this, this demo data for this chart, okay? And where is the, yeah, okay, so this is the actual script that they're using, you know, verbatim there, okay? And I copy-pasted it in. And so this is all stuff that I didn't have to write. This is just from Google Charts, okay? And this is the part that says draw the chart. So I didn't have to write any of this. I just copy pasted it in there, okay? This is the part that I did have to write that interacts with FileMaker, all right? So if I come here, let's see, in HTML, this right here, first of all, is the thing that tells FileMaker what JavaScript library we're using. In this case, let's come over here. This is the Google Charts library, JavaScript library. So when you think of the word library, it's like you go to your local city's library, right? And you have to, in order to check out books, you have to have a library card. This is essentially the library card that allows you to use all these functions within that library. Okay, you have to stick that little piece of code in your HTML in order to use it. And so over here in FileMaker, one of the first things in our HTML is the library. That's our library key card. Okay, everything else below it, this here, we're basically checking out books from the library, and we're calling specific features. Now, if you had asked me to write this from scratch, I mean, there's just no way. But Google gives us certain examples, and then we kind of deconstruct them. So you could put in here FileMaker data, right, and have it replace, and then you'd be viewing FileMaker data from your database in a Google chart. All right, we've done that in a previous live stream. But what you do with it after it gets generated, and here's what we want to take a look at here. So let's see. This technique uses Google's own image rendering service. All right, and so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I don't like it. And I'm going to show you a better example. I'm just showing it to you because this is how you could do it natively with Google. All right, the reason I don't like it is that the rendered image is very low quality. It's something like 70 pixels or something like that resolution. And if you want to print out a nice looking chart, you don't want it with really low quality. So I use a different service, and let's look at that real quick. Okay, good. So here's a gauge chart. All right, so same type of thing. Instead of using Google's own picture rendering function, I'm using a different library called HTML to Canvas. All right, and so it's not specific to a Google chart. You could, whatever you render here, you can use with this library. So if I go back one record, here's a very simple piece of HTML. You can see here, it just says, here's the title, FileMaker 19, JavaScript callback, etc. Okay, and then the JavaScript, where is it? Oh, and it's using 19, so I would have to pull that up. Let me, I'm just going to come here, Christian. So let me explain what this HTML to Canvas thing does. Whatever is generated over here on the right-hand corner in the web viewer, it's going to save a picture of it, and then we want FileMaker to take that picture, put it into a container field. There we go. Okay. So what it's doing here, again, we have HTML. Here's our two library cards, if you will. One is the Google charts. This other one is HTML to Canvas, which takes a screenshot of what's ever in our web viewer, puts it in the container field. Okay. Or it doesn't put it in the container field, it just gives us a picture, and then we have to write a FileMaker script to put it in there. So in our JavaScript, here's the part that we're concerned about. Okay, this thing over here, this piece tells us what element in our HTML to capture. So this is the HTML to Canvas function, and all this stuff you can look up on the web on exactly how to do it, okay, how to get it done. And so and so I won't try to deconstruct it. You can just look at HTML to Canvas's documentation on how to do that. But we're saying get the part that's called chart div in the HTML, and that's this part here, chart div, okay? And then take a screenshot of it. That's function canvas. And so it took a screenshot, and then the next pieces of code, we're saying we want to convert that screenshot to base 64, turn it into a PNG image, and once that is converted, then we encode it, and then we pass that that image basically to FileMaker. So that might sound very confusing, but a lot of this stuff you can look up online and understand what I'm referring to with base 64 and things. This is the real part that we're that matters to us. This little piece of JavaScript code says I want to do this specific script in FileMaker. And here I'm specifying that I want to specifically do it in FileMaker 18. So if you're like me, you might have several versions of FileMaker installed, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. With this protocol, I'm saying I want to do it specifically in 18. And then I'm saying the parameter that I'm giving it is the chart. Okay, so let's go ahead and debug this. If I have to change something, and then is it going to do it?
I think if you toggled the record, oh,
yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm using 19 to do this. I'm not quite sure.
that was going to be one of my questions: is how do you trigger it? Because you know what, Jonathan, you had sent me this file, and I was trying to remember why, and it's this right here. I've used web viewers to make HTML reports and a variety of other things, and the linchpin, the pain point for me has always been the ability to print it nice. This is such a cool feature.
Yeah, yeah. So I just went into layout mode and came back in. That triggered it. So this is the one script that we're calling. We're saying set the container field. That's this one. And then we're going to decode the parameter that we sent it, okay, into a real image. So I set it, and there we go. Commit records. It's as easy as that, okay? If I go to another one, let's see. This is the same exact thing, okay? So it doesn't just work with one kind of chart or one kind of piece of code that you're rendering. Anything that you render over here, you can save as an image with this code, right? So in this case, it's this big Google chart code here that I copy pasted in. And then down at the bottom, it's the same exact callback to FileMaker, okay? So I'm performing a FileMaker script, and I'm sending it the picture back to it to put in a container field. Okay. In this case, there is no CSS because Google already has its own styling mechanism.
We do have a question for you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Scott Kane wants to know if the triple asterisks you're putting in the text, if that's your naming convention or requirement of the JavaScript.
So this is just a placeholder, right? You could put something like @ if you wanted to, or something. But I'm putting something in there that I know is going to be something that needs to be replaced. Okay, so if I go to database, define database, I'm searching for this placeholder to replace it with. So that's just my naming convention. I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any other place in that code that's going to have this.
That's what I want to highlight. So not only do you want something that you know specifically what it is, you also want to try to choose something to the best of your ability that's not going to be referenced anywhere else in there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'm in FileMaker 19 right now. I just opened and closed. Okay. So what we just saw in records 4 and 5 were things you can do with 18 and below. These next things on records 6 and 7 are only things you can do with FileMaker 19, okay, and above, I guess. But so if I go into layout mode, I double click on the web viewer, that little checkbox needs to be checked. Allow JavaScript to perform FileMaker scripts. Okay. But we really are doing the same exact thing that we did on the previous records with 18 and below. We're just using a different bit of code, and it's down here. Okay. So instead of doing this, where is it? Yeah, it's not going to like that. Instead of doing this FM18 file name, etc., all we're doing here is this function. It says FileMaker.perform script. That's something FileMaker 19 can recognize. And then here we're saying do this script with this script parameter. And in this case, because it fires it so quickly and it doesn't wait until it renders, you have to make it wait for a little bit. In this case, this is a piece of JavaScript that says pause for 200 milliseconds before performing the function. Okay, so it's this piece that works with FileMaker 19 rather than 18 and below, right? But it does the same exact thing, right? It gets our, let me refresh. See there? See that brief little pause? You might have missed it. There's a little flash, and then it displays. That's that 200 milliseconds thing, all right? But that's the code that you need here. If you're using a different JavaScript library and you're not doing this HTML to canvas thing that takes a screenshot, then you wouldn't use this piece here, okay? Or it's actually this piece here that's the HTML to canvas. I had to Google that on their site and look at their documentation on how to do this. That's the one part I had to write. The rest of it, this is pretty straightforward. You're going to use this piece of code no matter what JavaScript library you use. This is how you tell FileMaker to do something with whatever you got or materialized in your web viewer. This is your callback to FileMaker to do something with the data you're now seeing, right? The record number 7 is the same exact thing as record number 6, except with a different chart. So down at the bottom, it's the same exact code, right? So I'm giving you several different examples of using JavaScript in the web viewer. There's 7 examples. So on record number 2 here, where is it? Record number 3. Okay, this is as basic as you can get. All right, this is a piece of JavaScript that says do this FileMaker script called callback with no script parameter and delay for 100 milliseconds. All right, so the actual script called callback is just show custom dialog hello world, right? So if I render it again and I hit refresh, I just executed JavaScript there. Okay, if I went like this, let's do one quick thing on the fly here. I could do something like alert hello Christian. Boom. And there's a piece of JavaScript that I just wrote. Now it's not very elegant and it's not very complex, but that is JavaScript.
How'd you get
All
the
it takes
logo
is
in there?
is putting script, and then some piece of JavaScript right in the middle there. In our case, an alert box. Okay? So if I remove that and I come here and uncomment out these lines, it'll do my FileMaker script again. Hello world, you see. So you might want to start with this really simple template on record number 3, and then progress to these other records and reverse engineer what exactly I'm doing. And I think this will give you a template as to how to use JavaScript libraries in the future. And I have a couple JavaScript libraries that I can show you what I'm talking about in a second here. But let's go ahead and hit pause again, see if we have any questions there.
I don't think we have any questions at the moment. Moki actually answered my own, which is I wanted to know why you had the Claris logo in there, but I guess that was an alert versus a show custom dialog that came up when it said hello Christian.
Yeah, so you can do when you do native JavaScript things where JavaScript is giving you some sort of alert dialog, that's native where you can't really control it. All right. Versus doing a custom dialog in a script. Like in the script, I have show custom dialog, and that looks like a FileMaker script, like you would expect. But if you do an alert, it's going to use JavaScript, and it actually comes with a little logo that you don't get on your show custom dialog script step. Okay. Let me go on here and show you a couple things.
And let me jump in again for 1 second, Jonathan.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not really a question, if you will, but the topics coming up I did cover in the beginning, but I'm going to refresh. Yes, the files that Jonathan is showing are going to be available. We are going to share them. Haley Marie will be working with Richard to get those bit.ly links out as soon as we can. I just can't give a specific ETA yet, but the community is very excited to get your files here. So continue, though, Jonathan.
Okay, and that'll be available on the YouTube link, or?
Rich, we're going to get some bit.ly links, and we'll send them out to the community. And then I'm sure once we send out this video in our email, we'll have some links loaded in there. But we got to get a hold of Richard to get him into Dropbox. And I don't know where he is in terms of the hurricane. I heard from him this morning, but I haven't heard from him since.
Gotcha. Okay. So here's a couple little interesting things that they're really cool, right? So here is a JavaScript library, and you're literally building a floor plan, okay? This is all JavaScript, everything that I'm doing here. So you could potentially integrate a full-on floor planning system in FileMaker using this library. All right, here's another one. This is a 3D rendering JavaScript example. I mean, check this out. So this is in Safari, so it's not going to show up, but if I was in Chrome, it would. But you could render 3D images inside FileMaker. Imagine that. Let's look at another one. Here's some UI, user interface JavaScript libraries where you can make cool little sliders and drop downs and color pickers and all sorts of things that you couldn't do natively in FileMaker, or not easily. But you could use a JavaScript library like this. And I just Googled this and found some examples. And these are all, and then you can drill down into their detailed documentation on how to use these features, just like the Google Charts library. Here's another one called TinyMCE. This is an HTML editor. So in FileMaker, you can't start typing lists into a FileMaker field, right? You can't do, for instance, let's see here, insert, there's a table somewhere. It's somewhere. You can insert a table. Yeah, there we go. And do all sorts of neat things that you couldn't do in a regular FileMaker field. All sorts of formatting. It looks almost like Microsoft Word, but imagine putting that in to FileMaker, incorporating that in. That's very useful, right? That's something that's worth your time figuring out how to do. And using some of these examples that I just showed you, that's the basic idea. The thing that you have to figure out a little bit of code from the JavaScript library in their documentation. Like here's the HTML, here's the CSS, and here's the JavaScript. You basically copy paste all of those elements and put them in something that looks like this: HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And every JavaScript library is going to have those 3 elements. And then you're just working with FileMaker to integrate this neat looking web element inside your FileMaker database. The text here can be coming from a FileMaker record in a field somewhere. Allowing people to print from that would be really useful. Here's one last example, and this is called View or Viewtify. And this is a user interface example where you can do card style windows like this and allow for a really rich user interface experience, maybe with some things that you couldn't do well natively in FileMaker. You can make a web viewer that displays stuff like this, and it's using, like for the labels, you can imagine it using FileMaker data, right? And here's all these different components that you can use, the different buttons and so forth. Really rich, really neat. A lot of things that I'm using in that Web Portal Wizard app come from libraries like this that I used and incorporated there inside FileMaker. Data tables is another JavaScript library. And again, once you get the general hang of this, the general hang of this type of setup, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and gluing it into your FileMaker system solution, like we've done with both of these files here, I think you're off to the races, and you can really use any JavaScript library you find inside FileMaker. So this is not a be-all, end-all type of webinar where I show you exactly how to use JavaScript under every circumstance, but I think this will kind of get you on your way and maybe whet your appetite for stuff that you can do inside FileMaker.
That's really well put, Jonathan. And you know, I just to follow up with kind of what you had said there, you know, my encouragement to people is we've got people on, you know, multiple sides of the swimming pool, if you will, from shallow to deep. And I know that at least for myself with this, sometimes you see those big text things that Jonathan's showing, the CSS, the HTML, the JSS, and it just looks like a foreign language to you. But like he said, you can actually go in there and figure out that there's ways to just copy and paste that in there and make it work, glue it in there. I like the way that you had said that. And from there you can really hit the ground running and figure out what you actually need to learn in terms of what JavaScript is. Like, I sat down and started going through the W3 schools myself, and then
there you go.
But then I pulled up the data tables example file that you brought up and realized that outside of that nebulous, if you will, JavaScript I had learned, I could go and take a website, look at the text fields I have, and figure out where to copy and paste it and make that file do a whole lot more than I was even understanding. And so I think your file is really great here for people near the shallow or medium side of the pool to go out there and experiment and see what it is, even if you're not some web or JavaScript guru. And to in Discord right now, there's a bit of a conversation going up that I think is common for this piece in the FileMaker community, which is, oh, are we turning FileMaker into websites? Oh, are we making Frankenstein databases? And Jonathan, I'd love to hear your take on this, but I don't see it that way at all. I just see it expanding our tool sets, as FileMaker has been doing now for decades, and giving us access to a number of the tools that have already been out there, just like APIs did for us. But I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, so a lot of times we're hired on to take over a project from maybe a developer who retired or someone who built a database in-house, and maybe they left their company, and we get hired on to come in and maybe do some cleanup work or advance the feature set that a company already has, right? Christian, you've done a lot of this as well. And so we take over a database and we go in here, and a lot of times I find that developers do things just because they can do them. Like, they figured out a way, oh, I can make this happen, so I should do it. It's not a good mindset to have. You shouldn't build things just because you can't. You only build things because you need to build them. And in this case, you only use a JavaScript library and go outside of native FileMaker if you need to. If you really needed to do horizontal scrolling, and that was a necessity in your feature set, you couldn't get around it, then you have to learn JavaScript. There's no other way. There's no other way to do it. So it's not a matter of JavaScript taking over FileMaker. It's more of a plugin without being a plugin. It's another tool that you don't really have to pay for unless it's a paid-for library. You learn enough to incorporate it in, and you use it. But you don't use like that Vuetify JavaScript library. You don't make all of your buttons and elements inside FileMaker using that Vue library if you can do it easily enough with native FileMaker buttons and native FileMaker fields. It's overcomplicating your database for no good reason, right? If you're really into how something looks and the user interface, and you want something so exact, and FileMaker can't do every bit of what you're wanting, but it can do 90%, then I would say, let FileMaker do it natively, okay, and forego the other 90%. Like FileMaker can't do an animation like this that gives you a hover type of thing. Maybe it can't do that. I don't really know if it can do exactly that. It can do something close. But anyways, you don't build a whole web viewer to make one button give you a little bit more advanced animation than what you can get natively in FileMaker. But if there's a full-blown feature like horizontal scrolling that you just can't get, then you got to do it with a web viewer. There's just no other way around it.
It reminds me a lot with like plugins. Like plugins can do some really powerful things. But if I can solve something without a plugin, even if I know a good trusted plugin does it, I prefer not to. Why tie myself to something external that I'm dependent on another person if I don't have to? But if there is no way to do it in FileMaker, then by all means use the tools that are there. And what you said there, Jonathan, I think is important. One of the conversation that's going on in Discord that I think is representative of the overall community and what's going on here. There's these two pillars right now, in my own perspective, of the FileMaker community. The one side is absolutely embracing these new technologies and just think it's absolutely going to change everything in FileMaker and it's the greatest thing ever. And the other pillar is hissing and pissed and says it will destroy everything that FileMaker is. And I think that like most things, somewhere in the middle is actually a great place. I know that one of the first databases I made for Richard, maybe it was the third one, he got me on the phone to let me know how terrible it was, but how happy he was with me, because I basically used a bunch of different colors and hovering did things. And he said, look, you finally figured out how to use a bunch of the tools in FileMaker. I can tell, because all the new engineers, when they learn these new things, they make everything on screen do it. And that's atrocious. It's a fruit salad. You need to know when and why to use these things so you don't adulterate the database. Too many JavaScript libraries can create dependency and conflicts in the solution, but it's not a bad thing because it is opening the door to solving problems that otherwise and previously weren't solved to us. And like some of the things that you just showed us in here that are really powerful and cool, and you can get something done that might have taken people, hundreds of hours, done in significantly less hours as long as it's done right.
Yeah, and I think one of those examples, like that JavaScript library that did floor plans, right? I just talked to a customer who was attempting to do that natively in FileMaker with objects and trying to draw, little rooms inside a house and trying to draw walls that separate certain rooms and square footage and this and that, all with native FileMaker objects with hide this and don't hide this and do this when. And for every single different floor plan, he had to create another layout with a whole nother set of scripts and a whole nother set of objects. When every floor plan is custom, they would have to hire him to put in, I would think, maybe 20 hours for every single layout, and it wouldn't look as nice as that JavaScript library I just showed you, a JavaScript library which is free, by the way. So you figure out how to incorporate that JavaScript floor plan library into FileMaker. You do the hard work once. Maybe it takes you a good 30 hours to do, but then you can make 1,000 different floor plans, and you can drag and drop certain furniture pieces and all sorts of things that are nearly impossible to do with FileMaker. And really, why would you if this capability is there? But again, that's an example of something that is really the payoff is greater learning how to do the JavaScript stuff in that type of situation than trying to brute force create it in FileMaker and doing it natively. It just makes more sense. It saves you money. It saves you time.
You know, what it almost reminds me of, every tool has an application and a purpose, and also things you don't use it for. TNT, dynamite, seems like a great tool to be used for the right jobs. If I'm trying to tunnel a hole through the Sierra Nevada mountains, using a pickaxe might take me a long, long time and be nearly impossible.
Well, you could do it, right?
But I could do it. So maybe the dynamite and the TNT is the right tool for that job. Now, if I need to dig a hole in my backyard, probably don't need to pull out the sticks of dynamite for that.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
You know, one of the hardest things, and Jonathan and I can't answer this today, is, you know, when and why do you use the different tools that you have available to us in there? But I do think that ultimately this is a great tool that's been given to us. It just definitely has certain costs and things that come along with it. And so knowing how to use it, first of all, is going to be step one. So, you know, I see a lot of people very excited in Discord. You've definitely generated some interest here on this, Jonathan, and I think you've just done a great presentation today.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Hopefully some of this is helpful down the road. And of course, if you need help with, JavaScript callbacks and just getting started with integration, that's something we can help with as well.
That was great. I love the plug there for some work from RCC. That was fantastic. Granted, I might be bothering you on this demo file because I do need to turn some web viewers into containers. But you know, Jonathan, you thought today might only last 20 minutes. I think you went a little bit better than that.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. Well, I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for joining us today. Thanks everybody out there on the Discord, YouTube, and Twitch side of things. Until tomorrow, this is RCC signing off. We will get you these demo files, and Haley Marie will be she'll be emceeing tomorrow with a presenter. I'm going to guess Nick. So everyone, you have a great Thursday. We'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you, Jonathan.
Take care. Bye.
Just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.